Welcome. Nitty Gritty is back. I'm here alone because Cam is finishing his breakfast.
Yep. Sorry.
But we're here with Jodi Orgill Brown. And I want to make sure I say Orgill right. It's not Orgill. It's Orgill.
It's Orgill.
Orgill.
Yep. Said it wrong. Jodi Orgill Brown. And this has been fun because this has been something we've been trying to set up for a long time.
Months and months and months.
And summer's hit and COVID's hit and other things, but we are here and so excited. And we actually got introduced through Dan Davis.
Yes.
So Dan, if you don't know Dan, the Sturry Man, episode, what was it? I just wrote it down. Oh, right there, 86. So, and man, he's going through some tough stuff right now.
He is. I was with his family last night, and they're making the best of it, but they are going through some hard times. And Dan is one who always helps people find the good in the struggles that they've been through. And so hopefully everyone is helping him do the same at this time.
Yeah, so if you listen to the episode, reach out, give Dan some love, because any love and encouragement is
I'm out
so
of it.
needed right now.
Is there a quick, can you tell me quick what's going on? Because I've been a little absent on social media the last month or so.
I don't know that I do a good job explaining. Just a lot of his health issues have gotten more and more serious.
I did see one just yesterday about his wife getting like a birthday,
Yes.
like a wardrobe, like a fashion expert, like a whole wardrobe. Like
that's why I was with them.
Thing.
Is we
that
had he did a big surprise birthday party for his wife, and we had a fabulous time together. But Dan is having some health challenges. None of it is easy to explain.
Yeah.
But he's had major surgeries. They're trying to fix some problems that go throughout his body, and he's going to be having another major surgery in about 2 weeks.
Oh, poor man. That's why he was gone, because he was going, I think he said he was on his way. He recorded a video for her, and I think he said he was on his way to a pre-op
that would make sense.
Something. And geez, man, poor guy.
Yeah.
But you know what? With all that's going on, he still had a huge smile on his face when I saw him last night. He was still giving out hugs. Even as he was sitting in his wheelchair and going around, he was making the best of it.
It's a reason him and Kim were fast friends.
Exactly.
Right?
Yep. So, yeah, we're so excited to be here. So thank you again. And I just kind of want to start from the beginning. I want to get to know you a little bit more. I mean, we kind of learned a little bit as we were pre-episode chatting, but you grew up around here, right?
I actually grew up in Northern Virginia, just outside of Washington, D.C. And then
so when my chatting that I learned a little bit.
Well, my parents have a home here, and I graduated from Orem High School.
See, that's why.
That's why you made that assumption.
High school is technically what should count.
Yeah.
Well, I had my junior and senior year of high school in Orem, and I grew up in a town called Warrenton, Virginia, which is now a suburb of Washington, D.C., best place in the world to grow up. And then we moved to Orem when my dad started working with Stephen Covey. So we came to Utah.
Super cool. What was out there? Is that where your parents were from?
No, they went out there for jobs. So my dad worked for IBM.
Okay.
He went to BYU for his bachelor's and master's degree and ended up with IBM, which at the time they were in Virginia and Maryland.
Okay. Very cool. And then work brought him back.
To Utah.
Cool.
And so at the lovely time, it is a junior in high school, worst time ever you could move. My family uprooted me, moved me all the way across the country.
I know. I was talking to someone about kids in schools because we're moving right now, and we were talking about moving our kids. And I was like, I went to 5 different grade schools. It's fine. But moving in grade school and moving in high school are pretty different.
Yeah, but if I was moving into your new house, you could move me to Africa. I don't even care. If that's the house I'm moving to, put me wherever you want.
Sign me up.
We're ready to go. Up. It's a nice house.
Well, I went to 4 different schools in 2 years during my transition from 9th grade to 11th grade because we weren't exactly sure where we were going to end up. And 4 schools. I
think that's the hardest time because I moved 8th grade from Huntington Beach, California to 1993 Heber City.
Nice.
There's a very big difference between Heber City in 1993 and what's over the mountain right now. I think we had a street light, and I had to fight 3 cowboys the first 2 weeks because I was like the blonde surfer kid in the Mexican poncho and flip-flops. But holy crap, it was traumatizing. But
it was a little traumatizing for me to come here, just from the D.C. area to Orem. I said, there's more churches here than 7-Elevens. I could not believe it.
So true.
So why did you move so much? Once you got here, did you go to different schools? Or was it out there where you're moving around?
No, it was the transition of trying to figure out where we were going to ultimately be. So we had times where we thought we were going to settle in one area and it didn't work out. And so we'd rented a place. And so I just ended up switching because of that transition. Once we actually moved to Orem and found a place to live, we were settled. It was that whole figuring it out in between that caused a little upheaval in our lives. However, I did take advantage of it as much as possible. Trying to be the new kid is not always fun, but if you work it, it can be okay.
Working it.
That would be pretty advantageous if you knew how to work it.
I figured it out.
Yeah, I was going to say, I'll bet you did.
What did you figure out?
I figured out that you just need to be open, get out there, be yourself, but as outgoing as possible, which I always was.
Oh, see, this is the healthy version of how to do it. I thought you were saying, like, I would cry, get presents for my parents.
Oh,
I acted depressed. I got to, they took me to the lagoon.
That's not the way to go. Okay. I would say
we're very different.
You just need to get out there and show people that you want to be a part of things. And the more that I did that, the more accepted I became. It was actually hardest when we finally settled down in Orem, because Orem High School was so big in comparison to some of the other schools I had attended, and no one knew I was new. It just didn't seem to matter, and that was actually a little tricky. So it took me a while to establish myself. People just assumed I was stuck up because I wasn't talking to them. They didn't realize it was because I didn't know a soul in the 2,600 kids that went to the high school.
There are some pretty sharp people from Virginia. Maybe they were just intimidated.
There were,
some pretty smart people
U.S.
from
presidents.
Yeah, only 8 U.S. presidents.
Just a couple.
And as a Virginian, you learn that and you have pride in it.
Isn't that funny? That's one thing about the South I kind of love. Like every state down there, I mean, none of them even hold a flag to Texas. Texas, they think way too highly of themselves. But
have you been to Virginia?
I have been to Virginia. Actually, you know what? You're right. Like,
we're taught that there's a pecking order.
Yeah.
We're pretty near the top.
North
Carolina is great. South Carolina is good, but they are not Virginia.
No, Virginia definitely has their noses up. But they kind of are on top of everybody physically and, figuratively.
Geographically.
Right? Geographically. Yeah. That's probably the smarter word than physically. Thank you, Andrew. I own a barbecue restaurant. Okay. Moving on.
Oh, that's funny. So after high school, what did you do then?
After high school, by then I was in Orem, and I went to BYU, which had always actually been my dream, even before I moved to Orem. In fact, I had to remind myself that my dream was to go to BYU, because once I was in Orem...
You didn't want to go anymore.
I still wanted to go,
it's okay.
But it
you
seems
can say
like a lot of other people didn't think it was so cool. And where I grew up, it was a pretty neat experience to be able to go to BYU. Okay. And so I had always had that dream. We used to go on Saturdays to our church building so that we could pull up the football games and we could watch the football games. And so my family were just Cougars back as many generations as I can think.
Yeah.
So
cool.
I always wanted to do that. And even though it wasn't as cool coming from Orem to go to Provo, I still decided I was going to do it and just had a great experience there. And my junior year at BYU, I did a semester abroad and went and lived at the BYU Jerusalem Center in Israel.
Oh, that's cool.
Awesome experience. And that is actually where I met my husband. We met
in Jerusalem?
In Jerusalem on a semester abroad. We were in the same
romantic
class.
If you think about
it, is actually a very romantic place.
Wow.
Our first kiss was on the Sea of Galilee.
It seems like you would be blessed if you meet somebody there. You know what I mean? Like that's a healthy place to start a relationship.
Well, and to establish the foundation of a new relationship while touring the Middle East and seeing the biblical sites.
Wow.
It was an incredible experience.
I want to go over there so bad.
That's really cool. Where did he come from? Was he from Utah?
He was from Ogden, Utah, which is why we are now settled in the Ogden area.
Okay.
I had never heard of Ogden, Utah at the time. He was actually from a town just outside of Ogden called Roy, which is even smaller and more backwards.
Roy.
Played Roy in baseball when I was young.
There you go. Now I've come to love the Ogden area. It has a fantastic business community, lots of unique shops and businesses. 25th Street is one of the greatest downtown areas, not just in Utah, but in the world. It's got a great little downtown area, and lots of movies are filmed there. It's always rated one of the best downtown areas, and it's
changed a ton. Because, I mean, growing up, Ogden's always like, you're like, Ogden. Ooh. But then you go up there now, like, the businesses they've attracted, some of the bigger companies.
It's a hip place. Is hip the right word?
Hips. That's perfect.
That's what we would use.
That's what it feels like. Like, yeah, you go downtown. It's amazing. Plus, they have some great golf up there.
Some great golf. Some great restaurants.
Club? Yeah. I've never golfed it.
Country Club, Mount Ogden Golf Course. There's a lot of good golf courses.
Okay. Now that I'm a bowler.
Okay.
Storm Bowling is in Brigham City right next door.
They probably have like some competition lanes up there.
Yes, they do. I'm going to go. I can't wait.
So did you come home from Jerusalem engaged?
Not officially, but unofficially.
What did your parents think? They sent you away to Jerusalem and you came back. You're like, hey, I found a husband.
My mother was actually a little bit relieved. I don't know if I should say this because she didn't like the guy that I was dating before. That's all we're going to say about that.
Just like Andrew's wife, Jenna. When we met Andrew and he came in, so we're brother-in-laws. We married sisters. And we remember the day that Andrew got brought home, and
the bar was pretty low for me.
We'll just say that compared to the ones that we met before, everyone was like, marry him.
Well, when I called my mom and told her that I had met this guy, she was actually, once she found out that he was from the BYU group and not Palestinian or Israeli, she was so relieved to know I would be coming home. She gave me the best advice I think anyone could have given me, because I was worried about things. I was worried about the guy back home. I was worried about what this was going to do. I wasn't planning on getting married at that time. I had none of that on my radar. And she just said, isn't falling in love wonderful? Just enjoy it. Enjoy your time falling in love. And from that moment on, not only did I look at my mother differently, but I also just relaxed and didn't worry about the other things and just enjoyed the time that we had to spend together.
Because moms, sometimes they can be a little difficult, but they do have those instincts.
Yeah.
And so for her to let her guard down like that and say that, that's basically like getting the blessing, right? That's like, she's into it.
I think she had some good instincts and intuitions early on, because before we actually went to Jerusalem, we had meetings where they brought all of the students together and they gave us protocol, and we had to take classes and know what was acceptable and what was not. And they brought our parents and families came in and they did introductions and, got you ready to go have this semester abroad experience. And I remember sitting in a room full of 500 people with the students, their families and parents, and they had some group leaders, and they had all of the group leaders stand up and introduce themselves. And simply for the matter of facilitating travel, they had these group leaders that were each going to be in charge of, 40 students, getting them over there. And my mom looked around the room and she said, your future husband could be in this room.
Oh my gosh.
She said that?
And I totally wrote it off because I knew who I was dating and I wasn't thinking along those lines at all. And sure enough, my husband was one of the group leaders who stood up and introduced himself. And then 6 months later, we were married.
How cool.
So how long were you in Jerusalem for then?
We were in Jerusalem for about, I want to say 10 weeks. And then we traveled through Egypt afterwards. Okay. So we went through Egypt, Jordan, and Israel. And then they had an add-on that you could do for another 10 days where you could go through more of Egypt. So I did the add-on. Okay. And just had a fabulous experience. Really cool. Cemented so many aspects of my life, of my testimony of God, of what I wanted to do, what I wanted to be. Seeing people who really were in poverty and struggling also made me aware of things that I really hadn't seen in Orem, Utah or Northern Virginia.
For sure.
And made me aware that most people don't live like we do.
Yeah.
And I had always had in my mind that I wanted to work in the nonprofit arena, but that really cemented it, that I knew I wanted to do something that would ultimately help the people around me and help people.
What inside of you kind of attracted you to the nonprofit kind of like giving back area?
I think once I finished my degree, so we came back from Israel, got married several months later. My husband had already graduated. The trip for him was his graduation present to himself, is that before he started his real world job, he took a semester off. And
you guys were totally meant for each other then. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
We went to BYU at the same time, but we had to travel 6,000 miles away in order to find each other. And
more people need to do that.
And actually this year we are celebrating our 25th anniversary, which blows my mind because I don't feel like I'm that old, but what an amazing experience that we started with and have just been able to build
Congrats.
on. Well, thank you.
So what are you doing for 25? Are you guys going to go back?
Can you go anywhere
back to Israel?
right now?
No,
you can't go to
that's
Israel
the
right now.
problem.
I want to go on an African safari, but
Whoa.
That's my wife's like ultimate bucket list.
we've done some fun travel, but we want to go to Mexico City and we want to do an African safari. Those are a few things that we want to do.
Every dangerous place on earth.
No,
Jeez.
Mexico. A lot of people feel like Mexico is super sketchy, but I love
just feel
Mexico.
like all of Mexico is super sketchy.
I love Mexico.
I love
people
Mexico
hanging
too.
from overpasses, and you just think it's like the wild, wild west down there. But it's true.
But also
It's not
the
all like
nicest
that.
people.
Oh, they're the best.
Biggest hearts, most giving, and most caring people. And
They're
you know what? That's
sweethearts.
ultimately what it comes down to. That's why I knew I wanted to get into the nonprofit field. Is I love people. People are that's where my heart is.
Where does that come from? So something that you said earlier that kind of, reading about you, like looking through your website, what stuck out was you were talking about how you were at Orem High. You were kind of like the person you are exactly right now, but in high school, at a new high school, like you just got to own it and meet people and just get out there. And where does that come from? So how many brothers and sisters did you have?
I have 6 siblings.
Okay.
My dad.
Where do you fit in that?
I am the second.
Yeah, okay.
And I've always been this way. I mean, I spoke at my preschool graduation. Let's just put it that way. I was the speaker at my preschool graduation.
I love it.
I didn't even know they had speakers.
I was the speaker
now.
at my high school graduation 14 years later. So I'm always been an open person. I love to get to know people. I love to chat. I love to explore new relationships. And when I moved to Orem, it's funny because coming from Virginia, where I had been my whole life and well known and well liked, and I had been a cheerleader and I'd been on student government, and I moved to a new place, and what was the first thing I did was I ran for student office and failed miserably because no one knew who I was.
But still,
I
the
think
fact
it
that you
impressed
did that,
people.
that's crazy.
And the funny thing is, I knew it impressed the school leadership because the administrators caught on and they actually got me involved. Even though I lost all of the elections, they got me involved on the back end and snuck me in a few ways when cool things were going on that the school got to participate in. They allowed me through a back door to come in and participate. I think they thought I would also be a good representative of the school.
Sure.
And so when the school got an award and actually was going to go to Washington, D.C. to accept the award from Senator Hatch, they sent the student body president, the student body secretary, and me.
No way.
Even though I wasn't in
we call
the
that
student
the
body.
third door here in this podcast.
That's exactly what it's called.
It's the
right?
open window
It's the
that you
third
sneak
door.
in. You open it a few inches and then you use it to crawl in.
Have you read the book, The Third Door?
No?
So you need to.
Okay.
So that's why this podcast exists. And people are probably sick of hearing about it. But so
Tough.
yeah. So
People,
the third door.
read the book and we'll stop talking about it.
It just talks about how there's a third door to success. And it is that. It's opening a window, jumping through it, finding, and
you only need a crack.
exactly.
And once you have a crack, you can get your way in. And my first book actually got published because I took back door, side door, crack through the window, whatever you want to call it. That's how it happened. And so I'm a firm believer. You got to use whatever tiny opening you are given, and then you find your way in.
Yeah.
And you find your way in from relationships and people.
Right.
Once you get in and you start meeting people and developing relationships, it takes it takes the struggle out, because once you're invested and you know and love people, you all want to help each other.
I saw a video, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints video the other day about, what was it? It was just one of those little, they can be a little cheesy, but this one was actually kind of cute. It was this lady that talked about, she read somewhere to just like put your phone down in line. If you're in line, say hi to somebody.
Talk to the people around you.
Put your phone down. So she's at the grocery store. There was this cute video of her, like this guy getting cat food. Like, oh, do you have cats? I have dogs. And he lived alone, old man. It was just like, today's my birthday. She got the chance to tell him happy birthday, probably the only person to say it. And it's like, but that's exactly. So since then, I've kind of been doing that. Like I've been trying to like. Present, yeah. Because that's totally me. I don't know where that kind of goes. I think it is the phone. Like, it's just, I love talking to people.
And yet now we're also distracted and busy with ourselves and the people online that we forget about the people who are right in front of us.
Yeah,
totally.
And right now I have, very strangely, a post that's going viral online. And you can't plan these things, right? I just made a post on Saturday about an experience I'd had, and it just started to blow up. So, but that's exactly what it was about.
What was it?
I went on Friday and was driving through my neighborhood to go take my son to a doctor's appointment. I saw a little girl standing on the side of the road about a half a mile from our house, and she was holding a sign, and it said, "Rocks for sale." And I thought, rocks for sale? If this little girl is selling rocks, she must not have anything else to sell.
Yeah.
And I wanted to stop, but we were on our way to an appointment. So we went to the appointment. On our way back, she was still standing there selling her rocks. So I started to pull over, and my son said, "Mom, I got to go to work. We can't stop right now." So I took him home. I went in, grabbed some cash, and I got back in my car, and I drove back to talk to her. And I said, "So you have rocks for sale. Tell me about these rocks."
How old was she?
She's probably, I would guess, maybe 11, 10 or 11 years old, maybe 12, a little hard to tell at that age.
Sure.
And she was telling me about her rocks, very proud of her rocks, and I said, "Wow, well, they're beautiful, and I'm so glad to see them." And she said, "I've been standing here for 2 hours, and you're the first person who stopped. And I already went door to door trying to sell my rocks, and no one wanted to buy any." So I grabbed out my $20 bill, and I handed her the 20, and she said, "Oh, I don't have change for a 20. I said, "Well, you don't need to give me change, because I'm going to buy 4 of these amazing rocks. And so, that'll take care of it." And this little girl started to cry. Tears started streaming down from her face. And she said, "We have this little cat, and right now we can't afford to keep the cat. And my mom said, the only way we can keep the cat is if I can earn the money to buy the food for the cat." And she said, "So now, if you're really going to buy 4 rocks, I'm going to be able to buy food, and we're going to be able to keep my favorite cat."
Wow.
And I got home, and all I could think about the rest of the day was how $20 would literally change this little girl's situation at that time.
Yeah.
And to me, it wasn't even, it was $20.
Yeah.
I bought over how she chose rocks.
Yeah.
Like, how cool is that?
Well, and she said, "If you don't like these, I have a bucket with some other ones." And she showed me her bucket.
My gosh,
and some of them were just little broken off pieces. And she said, "With those, I wrap them and I make them into pendants and I sell them." And that's what she was able to do. That was how she was able to do something to help herself. And so I high-fived her, and I told her, how much I loved her rocks. And then I just said, "If you need anything in the future, just come out and hold your sign so that I know." And drove away, and I haven't seen her since then. But I posted that on Saturday, just took a picture of the rocks, and holy moly, I don't know what happened, but clearly that little experience resonated with people for exactly the reason that you're talking about, Cameron. It's that we forget to look around and see what's right in front of us.
Yeah.
How many times do you drive by the lemonade stands and the kids selling Rice Krispie treats or cookies or whatever? But for some reason, the girl selling the rocks, it just really...
I would have pulled over for rocks. I would have been
love rocks.
Well, and it's not even that for me. It's With the lemonade stand, their mom made the lemonade. But a kid selling rocks either loves rocks or doesn't have anything else to sell. And they're like, you know what? I'm going to figure it out. I think I'd pull over just to see which one it was. Like,
and I think that's how I felt. And I think it was a combination of both, because she told me that the rocks came from Oklahoma and she had a whole bucket of them.
I love it. See,
but
Cohen
really,
would sell rocks. My son, he's obsessed. And he'll just be like, did you see the crystal in this? I'm like, no, I think you're smoking crack, but I'm like, it looks cool. But I mean, he loves them, you know?
I love rocks. I bring home rocks from everywhere we go. And my kids give me sticks and rocks for gifts, and I get so excited because I love nature. I have a little waterfall in my backyard, so when I get rocks, I go put them in a special place in my waterfall.
That's cool.
I could decorate my whole house with sticks and rocks.
Oh my gosh, we need to interview this girl. We need to find her. You should. It'd be so cool to you should just pull over and ask her some questions.
Well, I'm going to find her because I know the apartment complex that she lives in.
Yeah.
And I had so many people online reach out and say, can I give her a gift card?
Yeah.
Can I get her a subscription to
cat food?
Yeah, cat food
Amazon,
or
cat food,
PetSmart.
Send a big cat tree.
Yeah.
You know,
so I've got people who are now donating to help this little girl. And once I have a little bit
people cool?
Yes.
Like, that's what's, I love hearing stuff like that. And it's why it's viral is we do need to be reminded about there's so many good people, because it's all the negativity and the divisiveness.
It's because
all over us,
airwaves,
right?
You know?
And so
it was such
so
a great reminder to me of one of the things that I speak on all the time, which is that every interaction is an opportunity to change a life. It's one of the mottos that I live by.
That's so
and
good.
That moment with that little girl was the perfect example.
Will you say that again?
Every interaction is an opportunity to change a life.
Man, that's so good.
And in this case, it wasn't just one life. It was my life. It was her life, probably the lives of her family members and her little kitty.
Sure. Yeah.
And now the thousands upon thousands of people online who are inspired to say, you know what? I'm going to pay more attention. I'm going to look.
I'm going to stop at the next.
I'm going to stop. I'm going to talk to the kids. I'm going to look. I'm going to search out those opportunities that are right there, but I'm probably just passing them by.
Yeah. So important. Yeah. I mean, going back to just the distractedness that is our lives, just slowing down and being aware of other people and what's around you and being able to kind of tap into that, I think is so valuable for us right now.
Well, I've cried twice already.
My job here is done.
Holy crap, Jodi. It's amazing. It's so funny how such small things are such big things. And you're right. Like, every interaction is an opportunity to change a life. Like, holy crap. That is such amazing advice.
Yeah.
And
so
when
good.
you really stop and think about it, and when you really use those moments standing in the line at the store or having an interaction with someone, the cashier who's checking you out, when you use those and you look at them as an opportunity, it changes the whole way you see the world.
For sure. Well, and people forget, especially here, you know, there's a heavy majority of us are Christians here, right? And it's like, how many of us have had a trial or a difficult thing that another person ended up being the answer to a prayer, you know, or a struggle that you had? So it's like, if you don't lift your head up from your stupid phone, how many of those opportunities are you robbing yourself of having? And it's like, we've all suffered something. So it's like, let's put it to good use, for crap's sakes. We can't do that.
And I think COVID made it worse because people almost got a little social anxiety about getting back out and being around people again after so long being on their own. We kind of got used to being in our own homes and started feeling comfortable. And then when you have an opportunity to get out again, you're almost a little nervous to go and interact with people. We started to lose a few of those skills.
Yeah.
And I'm so
I think people
glad.
are hungry for it, though.
Yes, I'm so glad
They're
that we're
scared,
starting to.
But they're hungry. And
so if you can just take that 5 seconds of fear and just blast through it and be brave, that's all it takes. As soon as you start that first conversation, you're fine.
And
you're
we're
good.
doing this in preschool, Jodi. Holy
I
crap.
get it from my dad.
We didn't dig enough. That's the thing. Like, second kid of 6, like don't really have to stand out because you're kind of on the older side. But yeah, that I wanted to kind of dig into that because I mean, preschool, I mean, a lot of that type of stuff sometimes is inborn, you know, it's just your nature.
Absolutely.
But there's got to be some nurture involved in there somewhere.
Well, I do believe there has to be. And the fact that my dad was a trainer and consultant and was always not just talking, but walking the walk. He used to have us listen to those affirmation tapes at night.
Really?
So I would listen to waves that in the background, you know, told me that I was strong and brave. So I've been doing things like that my whole life. I love to consume books and self-help and business and any guru out there. I want to read
Tony Robbins. I'm obsessed. Tony Robbins, he's my guy right now. I just can't stop. Watching him work with people, it's just like, it's crazy.
I love John Maxwell currently. He's amazing and love the work that he's done. He said at one point in time, he has a quote that says, you don't go to the top, you grow to the top.
Gosh dang it. I want just one good quote. Like I want to come up with just one good one that people like, there's this guy, Cameron True, 350 pounds, striking, cooks great barbecue, but just kidding.
Said this.
Yeah.
I think we can come up with something. The fact that you are not from the South, that you were living in Provo, Utah, you saw
in February, by the
barbecue
way,
competitions online, and a year later you were in those same competitions.
And winning.
And winning
yeah,
speaks volumes about you.
That's called the ADHD wormhole. That's what that's called. I went down the wormhole. But I will tell you this. Every single success I had in barbecue was relationships.
Amen.
Like literally 1,000%. Like I could draw a timeline and the person, just like Arizona, Oklahoma, Texas, like all these big pit bosses where I did a little favor, helped them out, was kind of their person in Arizona or in Utah. And then they owed me a favor and then they had something come up like, come out here, I'll show you this, or they'll trade me a secret for, I don't have any meat today. Bring me a brisket and I'll give you a recipe. Just stuff like that. And you're right. It's 100% relationships.
Oh, for sure. I think that's in all access.
But we all need reminded of that. Like just sitting here with Jodi, like it's just that thing on YouTube with the church the other day too. It's like that quote is going to be ringing in my ears for the next 2 weeks. Like every interaction is an opportunity to change someone's life.
Yeah.
How cool.
And where that really occurred to me was when I was in the hospital. And we haven't even talked about what most people want to interview me about, which I actually want to say thank you. How great that we're talking about something other than a brain tumor, because that's usually what people want to know about. Because that's how people came to know anything about me, was through the struggles that I had. And I did have a brain tumor that was wrapped around my brainstem that was deemed inoperable by an entire healthcare system, and only through a series of what I now know were divine miracles were we able to find someone who operated. But in that process, they were able to remove about 80% of the tumor. I do still have about 20% of the tumor that is still there that they just can't get to. It has not regrown, which is a huge blessing. But from those initial 3 brain surgeries where they were trying to remove the tumor, it did leave me with facial paralysis, a spinal fluid leak, a condition called pneumocephalus. I lost the hearing in my right ear, and then developed chronic migraines, and left me with more than a few deficits. And for the go-getter, conquer the world girl that I had always been, it was devastating to not only not have control of anything in my life, which was probably one of the most difficult things, but also not to be able to help anyone else because I couldn't even help myself. And it was during that time, being in the hospital, being in neurocritical care for 35 days, fighting for my life, that I realized how important every interaction is. And there were times where interactions with someone took me very low and made me just want to give up because I realized they didn't see me. I was just a body in a bed. I was a name on a chart. And that took not only my will to live, but my desire. Like if they can't see me and they're assigned to care for me, then who am I? And it was devastating. And then there were other people who used what could have been just a check the list on their jobs for the day, having to bathe me for heaven's sakes, and yet turned it into a beautiful experience. I had one particular day where I was desperate for a shower. I had been in the hospital. I had been sicker than sick. I had been completely bedridden, hadn't been able to get up for days. I was finally doing a little bit better. And even though at that time I had to be showered in bed, just laying flat, and they would literally just come and shower me off, but I thought, I need to shower today. It will help me feel a little bit more human. And then of all days, a gentleman CNA walked in and introduced himself. And I thought, oh, crap.
Today's not the day.
Today's not the day. So I just decided showers, overrated. My teenagers have proven that time and time again. You don't have to bathe to get away with, functioning. So I decided in that moment, okay, I'm not going to have a shower, but if I could just get my hair washed, maybe I would have a little bit of that sense of myself restored. And so I looked at this guy who was probably early 20s, long, brown, scraggly hair.
And how old were you at the time?
I was 33 years old.
Okay.
I'm going to teach you
4
a
little
life skill,
kids.
son.
Well, so I asked him, I said, Lucas, is Christy or Heather here? Could someone come in and wash my hair? And he just kind of looked at me and he said, I can wash your hair. Oh, okay, great. Thanks. All right. Appreciate it. So he just said, hey, I'll be back after I visit the other patients, I'll come back in. And a little while later, he came back and went, a whole cart full of supplies.
Wow.
I thought, are you sure you're not going to the circus? Because I don't know what you're going to be doing in this room, but it doesn't look like we're just going to be getting my hair washed. But he clearly knew what he was doing. He had me scoot to the end of my bed. He took a black plastic garbage bag, draped it over my pillow, and had it cascading off the end of the bed down into a garbage can, so that when the water dripped on the plastic bag, it would waterfall down and be caught in the garbage can. And when all was ready, he had me scoot up to the top of the bed and he said, I know that this is difficult, but close your eyes and just try to relax. And he spent the next half an hour massaging not just shampoo and conditioner onto my head, which at the time was mostly shaven and covered in staples and scars. What he did was he really massaged the humanity back into me. The dignity that I had lost from feeling like I was no longer a person, all of a sudden came rushing back. And I realized there's still a person here, and he sees that person. And I don't know if he knows the power of what he did, but it has been 12 years, and I can still describe Lucas to you down to a detail, because that young man, not only did he change my life, in some ways he saved my life. So when I talk about every interaction being an opportunity to change a life, I'm not saying it in a glib way. His kindness truly saved me. And at a time where if I had died, it wouldn't have been from a brain tumor. It would have been from hopelessness, because I had been fighting the fight for so long, and my body was so sick and my energy was so depleted. It would have been so much easier to give up. And I needed every reminder and every little bit of strength to keep going. And Lucas gave that to me at a critical time. And that was the only time in 35 days in the hospital that he was my CNA. But I do not think it is a coincidence, because at that time, he really helped infuse me with the will to keep fighting for my life.
I think it's time to find Lucas.
I would love to find Lucas.
Yeah.
Do you know his last name?
I don't know his last name.
I bet it'd be pretty easy to find.
He worked in neurocritical care at the University of Utah Hospital in 2009.
All right, people.
Someone find him.
Find Lucas.
I probably even have a picture of him somewhere. We could maybe
We're going
create
to
a
get him
post.
sponsored by Paul Mitchell.
Oh my gosh. Lucas is my hero. And he doesn't know it, but he's a hero to thousands of people now who have heard his story of how he touched my life.
Oh my gosh, we got to get Lucas in here with Jodi.
Well, think about that, right?
So cool.
Washing someone's hair. He probably does that how many times a day? You know what I mean? Like such a, to your point, a check the box type of task that gets done often.
I think he knew exactly what it was.
He did what I'm saying, though, but it's not like that's the only time he's ever done that as part of his job description.
Okay, totally right. Like the way he brought in the supplies, knew how to cascade the water off the bed. Like, I bet he knew what that meant.
He clearly knew what to do.
Yeah.
But I do believe that, Cameron, you're right, that in that moment, he also knew that it was more than just getting my hair washed.
But like him, what I'm saying is like the fact that he was able to be open to that and understand the significance of a seemingly insignificant moment or act. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Even telling you like, just relax, just close your eyes.
Yeah.
Knew you were probably stressed about it. Like, wow.
Well, like, but
what a story.
How many of those types of moments are out there for each of us? Right? Like a simple act, if we just slow down a little bit and try and tap into or understand the other person, right? I mean, it's the simplest and the stupidest thing, smiling at someone as you walk past them and saying hello. Who knows if they were having the worst day ever, and a smiling face gives them the strength to take that next step.
Well,
right?
I have found that as well, because with facial paralysis, one of the challenges of facial paralysis is that the happier I'm feeling and the bigger I smile, the more unnatural it looks, because that's when you see the asymmetry in my face.
Sure.
And so when I get really giddy and excited and I'm like grinning my biggest grin, that's
when it's the most obvious.
It's the most obvious that, hey, there's something wrong with her. So here's what I have discovered.
It's horrible. I love it.
But it's also a superpower.
Well, no, and that's what I mean. Like, I think there's such an energy when someone is that happy. And it's like, I would hope that I wouldn't even notice. Like, I would hope I would notice the happy. You know what I mean?
And that's what you do hope for.
But yeah, I get it.
You get enough of the other that you realize, okay, clearly I know what they're seeing.
Right.
And a few years ago, I went on vacation to our family vacation spot. We have a cabin on Hevgen Lake in Montana. So we always go into West Yellowstone, which is my favorite little town. We went to go to the movies, and I saw someone who was buying movie tickets. And the lady looked at me, she says, I remember you. Like, you remember me? She's like, yeah, I worked here a couple summers ago, and I think you came. And I was like, I'm sure I came a couple summers ago. But that experience made me realize I am memorable.
That's right.
And I can use it as, it could be a negative thing, or it can be a positive thing. And so I use it now as a positive thing.
Yeah.
I know people are going to remember me. I know that they're going to look and they're going to see that something is different. And I decided I can either leave them wondering, or I can make them remember something positive and something uplifting. And so I use the fact that I'm memorable to do some good. And I think I'm going to leave them with the best experience possible, so that when they think about that person who maybe didn't look quite right, but uplifted them in a wonderful and positive way.
Totally.
It's an amplifier. I mean, it's
well,
when I heard you telling the story, there's two things that really stuck out. Like, no, I'm totally gonna cry. Hold on.
It's okay. Crying just means you're feeling things deeply. Embrace it.
I am. Just hearing that the preschool talking Jodi, like hearing that you were where you were in the hospital. I think for most people that would be normal, but for you, to me, that really put some like more meaning to it, like of just how bad it was. Because for you being what we know of Jodi so far, like that must have been a really low. And so, sorry. But it's funny because, you know, Kim White and I we're good friends. We still are good friends. And I just remember thinking that people like you and like Kim, God does amplify. Like there's something there that has to be put out to more people. And her sickness was that amplifier. As hard as that has to be for that person, it's a way that God can get you out to more people. And gosh, that's a heavy burden for you, but I've known you for 25 minutes and I'm very grateful for it.
Well, I think you're exactly right. And I remember being in the hospital and getting to the point where I realized, I think I'm going to live. I think I'm going to make it through this. And having this overwhelming feeling of, what do I do now that I'm going to live? And then having this kind of epiphany, this ray of light come down from God that let me know this isn't about a brain tumor. This isn't even about you, Jodi. This is about letting people know God still exists. He's still a God of miracles and still answers prayers. This isn't about me at all. And it's interesting that you use the word amplify and amplifier, because when I decided that I needed to start sharing my messages more, I started a company, and it was called Amplio Development. And Amplio is the Latin term for amplify, to elevate, to increase, to improve. And I thought that is what I am supposed to do, is help people come to know God, come to know themselves, and come to love other people. And if we can just do those simple things, if we can really see each other and have those moments and become better instead of bitter from the things that we go through, then we're rocking life. We're succeeding. We're doing what we're supposed to do. One step, one person, one relationship at a time. Buying one rock at a time.
Yep.
Stopping to see the individual behind, just the scenario. You could drive by a million storefronts and not think a thing. But I'll tell you, God did not let me drive by that little girl without having a very specific thought come into my mind.
Well, I mean, you went back multiple times, right?
See, that's the interesting thing to me. It's like, I felt like something was trying to throw you off there. Like, what was trying to get you to not go?
100%.
You know
You're
what I mean?
right. Because I tried to stop twice. I wanted to stop. The first time I looked at my watch, can't stop.
Yeah.
Wanted to stop the second time. My son's like, we can't stop. You're absolutely right.
Third time it's like, hello, get back there. Let's go.
I got home and I could not think of anything else other than I got to get some cash and I got to get back over there while she's still there.
Yeah.
Well, and how long does she carry that for, the girl?
Forever. Just like this.
If she
just like getting her hair
get-
washed. She'll carry it with her forever.
If she didn't get the $20, but it was $20. For you, it's nothing, right? For her, like her companion, like we know the power of our pets and what they can do to heal us, and how special they are for children, especially like for their psychological development, from happiness to social skills to all that, right? Learning how to take care of something. That $20 is so loaded with good.
And the power of humanity. Yeah. What she will think of is that people really are good at heart.
Yeah.
And that even though she couldn't get into many doors to sell her rocks, she's not going to think of all of those doors that she didn't get into. Yep. She's going to remember the time that a lady stopped and bought her rocks.
Yeah, it's made me think. Stephanie, my business coach, she would always tell us that events only have the meaning that we give them. Right. We are meaning making machines. So we have the power to control whatever narrative it is, right? No matter what the event is, it's that actual event is just that. We get to decide what that means to us.
And I think that's one of the things I've discovered as an author and as a speaker is you get to assign those meanings, and you can find one little moment, but when you assign great meaning to it, that is a powerful, powerful moment to share. And I think that's why that post has gone viral. Yep. I think that's why the story of Lucas hits so hard with people. I have people who write me letters and messages and, oh my gosh, if we could just find Lucas. And then they created a hashtag, Live Like Lucas. and I just thought,
Freaking
oh my
Lucas,
God.
where are you?
Lucas, we're going to find you.
Gosh dang, we are going to find you.
And I don't even know if he's going to remember that event, but it is
he'll
cemented
remember.
in my mind forever.
He'll remember.
Forever.
He knew.
I hope that he did.
He
But
did.
you think of the hundreds or thousands of patients that he saw, and to him, I
Yeah, but
probably
you were
didn't
Jodi.
look that different.
No, you were still Jodi. Seriously, I'm convinced. Like, how many people stopped for the rock kid, right? Like, I keep thinking of the social experiment. Like, we should set up 10-year-olds all over the country with "I'm selling rock" signs, and then let's interview the people that stop, because I bet the people that stop are Jodi's.
Well,
Seriously,
it's the
Right now you're
poem.
making me cry.
well, I mean,
well, it's the poem. I always have a story or poem quote, right?
It's amazing. It's my
a story
favorite
about
thing.
like Christ, how there was this class where there were all of these religious professors in, and they were teaching them about the life of Christ. And so they were learning every different aspect about his life, like all of the nitty gritty, right, of who Christ was.
Nice.
And so I snuck that in there.
Like that.
But then for their final test, what they did is they showed up to the class, because it was like a credited course, or it was something. So when they got to the class, they said, your test is across campus. So they had to all get across campus.
I've been in one of these experiments.
And when they walked across campus, there was an old man hobbling with a cane who dropped his cane. There was like a child crying because she dropped her, like 3 or 4 people along the way, and none of them stopped.
Oh.
And so they all showed up and they said, you've all failed this test. You've learned about Christ, but you don't know him.
Yep.
Right?
You have not yet become like the man that you're trying to
That's right.
But like
emulate.
Christ, we forgive you, and we're going to let you have another shot.
Yeah. But it's so true. I mean, it's like all of these things. It's like people know what to do, but they don't do what they know.
Yeah.
Well,
it takes practice, you know. For some people, it comes more naturally than others, but for some, it takes practice, and that's okay. I mean, you listen to this podcast, and I guarantee that you'll start, that's how you train,
just do
right?
one thing, right? Just do one thing
that's
that you,
it.
yeah. Anyways.
And
That's
as
it.
you look for it more, as you look to find those situations where you can be a powerful influence, you will find them everywhere.
Yes, you
See,
will.
and that's the thing, like, and you're going to need that too. Like, that's what people forget is your day is coming. Like, we all, I mean, that's what that's what life is about, right? Is it's going to be hard thing after hard thing after hard thing. So it's like the more that you can be a solution or an uplifting force in someone's during their hard thing, like, you're going to have that, call it karma, call it whatever. You're going to have that for your next hard thing, because it's coming. You're going to get it.
Absolutely. And it reminds me of 2 quick stories that are kind of tied together in my mind. When I got out of the hospital and I was starting to figure out what this new life would look like. And I went out to lunch with one of my girlfriends. We took our little boys. We went to the local Wendy's, and they were eating their, chicken and fries and whatever. And I was just visiting with my friend, and we were trying to catch up. And a gentleman came up to me, and I will call him a gentleman because I am kind, not because he was kind. Oh. But he came up to me and stared at me, and he said, "Why are you wearing your Halloween costume so early in the year?"
Oh, wow.
And I just stopped.
This is an adult?
This is an adult. I would guess a man in his 50s, maybe 60.
Holy crap.
And my friend looked at me with this just expression of horror on her face. Did he just say that to you? And I just looked at the gentleman and said, this is not a Halloween costume. This is the face I wear every day. And then I just turned away from him and went back to conversation. But it was fairly upsetting to me. And time after time, when things like that happened, I wondered, I should have thought of some snappy comeback. What am I going to say next time this happens? And sadly, there has been plenty of next times. But then on the flip side, just what you're saying, Cameron, yep. One day I was at the pharmacy. I was going to pick up some painkiller because I was in a bad, bad place. Brain tumor recovery, very tough. And left me with a lot of pain for many, many years. and I was in desperate need of having some relief. I hadn't slept. I had a migraine. I was in a bad place, and I went to go get this prescription filled. And the pharmacist came and told me, well, we can't fill this because this is what do they call it? A controlled substance. And we can't fill this. But my doctor prescribed this. Well, but the code that was used isn't quite right, so we can't fill your prescription. I'm going to have to make some phone calls. We're going to have to see. So immediately I'm feeling terrible because here I am trying to fill a controlled substance. And even the pharmacist is looking at me saying, sorry, but we can't give you this. So they went to make some phone calls, and I sat in the pharmacy on a chair waiting for these phone calls to be made. And I was just in tears. I was in so much pain, and I was in such a bad place. And I just kind of had my head down, feeling awful. And a woman walked into the pharmacy and went up, and she got her prescription with no problem. And then she looked and she saw me, and she said, Jodi? And I looked over. I didn't recognize this woman. And she said, are you Jodi? I said, yes. And I stood up, and she went over and threw her arms around me. And she said, I read your book, and your book changed my life. I'm so glad to see you. And I just started to sob, because at a moment where I was at my lowest and I was in so much pain and feeling so unseen, she knew who I was on the inside. And she reinforced me and gave me that sense of love and energy and strength as she hugged me. And within a short period of time after she left, the pharmacist was able to get the prescription called in, and I was able to get it filled and go home and go on with the rest of my life. But what I remember from that day is this woman who saw me, and even in my moment of need, she proceeded to give me the strength that I was so desperate for in that time. And I think that's exactly what you're saying, Cameron, is there will be those times for all of us, whether it's loss of a family member or an illness or a job situation that we hadn't planned on. You just don't know, whether it's something that happens in the world that just flips everything upside down, and all of a sudden your hopes and dreams are devastated because the business you saved up your whole life to open has to close. I mean, we're going to have those times.
Yep.
And the best thing we can do is link arms and help each other through it.
Well, because who knows what's on the other side? Like, if you would have walked in and got your prescription filled, you would have left no better. You would have had the medicine, but you would have left no better.
Oh, wow. That's beautiful. Oh, I love that.
And so, I mean, you have to go through those, right? You have to experience both sides of it sometimes. It's
and how about the healing energy of a hug?
Yeah.
I mean, I bet you didn't feel pain for a couple minutes.
You know what? I didn't.
And
it's one of the reasons that even though with people feeling anxious to get out and be around people again, there's nothing more important to do, because all of the worry about what's going on in your life, your own pain, your own distractions and worries go away when you start to have amazing interactions with other people. And I mean, they've always said that, service is the best thing for someone when they're hurting, is go and find someone else to serve. We need to be out there. We need to be interacting. We need to be hugging again. My gosh, we need to be hugging again.
If I give one more fist bump, I'm going to punch someone in the face.
The fist bump's going to be to the nose?
The fist bump, I'm like, I
or
swear to you.
Or the elbows? I mean, okay.
See, I won't do that.
I love your
elbow. Puts their elbow
but...
up, I'm going to slap their elbow, or I'll lick it. I'll just be like, how funny would that be? Like, Sarah, I'm like, COVID's been gone for a week. We're good. We're good.
COVID's been gone for a week.
Gosh, let's just chest bump. That's hygienic, right? Can't we do that? Or just shoulders or hips. But yeah, it's so funny, because you're totally right. The touch thing it's huge. Because seriously, you think of the hug and what you felt inside, and it's like there's so much healing energy there.
Or when someone reaches over and grabs your hand and squeezes it at a time where you just don't know if you can get through that moment. Those are the times that you remember, even if it wasn't the person that you remember the most, but you remember that energy and that hug. I was sitting in a courtroom one time with a dear friend of mine, and they were awaiting a decision from the judge, from a jury, and literally lives and fates were on the line. And one of the women whose husband was going through this, I happened to be sitting next to her and I did not know her, but I could feel her anxiety and her emotions and her fears and her tears. And I didn't know what to do other than I just reached over and grabbed her hand, and she squeezed my hand so hard, like it left marks, indentations from my ring and her ring in my hand. And when they got a positive result from the trial and everything was going to be okay, then she was able to have that joyous moment, and all of that stress and relief was able to be let go of. But in those moments, I will never forget how much she had been trying to hold on to, and just having that little outlet of a hand to hold on to, someone else to share in that pain.
How many times has she told that story? I'll bet. The woman. You know what I mean? Like, oh man, that's a big one. And I mean, how simple for you, right? You could just feel it. All you did was reach over and hold her hand. But I bet she has told that story 200 times.
Just learning about the power of a moment, right? A simple action.
Yep.
And what it can do, right? What is it? So every interaction is a chance to change your life?
Is an opportunity to change your life.
I almost got it. It'll be there.
So close.
Man, there's so much fun we could have, but I know your time's coming short. So if you want to learn more about Jodi, book, author, speaker, there's a ton out there, but I want to just end because what you're talking about now, I think, is so important. And it's about this idea, this training of becoming anti-fragile.
Yes.
And man, I think we need that right now. I think everyone is so easily offended by stuff. So tell us a little bit about that. What is it, and how did this become kind of your focus right now?
Really, it started from several years ago. In 2012, a man named Nassim Taleb coined the phrase anti-fragility. And he said anti-fragility is a property of systems that actually increase in their capability to thrive when thrust with volatility, stressors, mistakes. And I heard that, and he was talking very theoretically. He was talking about how economies need to be stronger so that, one event that happens doesn't destroy an economy. He was talking about it. He's a mathematician and a statistician. Brilliant man. I've consumed much of the literature that he has written. And if you were to try and look at his models on anti-fragility, they're so complicated. You can't even... He would not say he's an academician, but I would say he thinks on such a high level. He's a thought leader. He comes up with these incredible concepts and thoughts, but really a lot of them remain high level. He's really talking statistics, odds, probabilities, how you can try to prepare for what he calls black swan events, which are really things that are unexpected, like when crisis strikes, when a pandemic comes, when you have a terrorist attack. How can you take these kinds of things and not have the economy destroyed? So that was the very high level where he started with it. And he went into more depth and covered many more areas. But when I heard the concept, I just thought, anti-fragile. Oh, wow. Systems that actually grow in strength because of the stressors and the mistakes and the volatility that they're facing. And I just started coming up with my own way of thinking about it. How could a company become anti-fragile? And I love the example of evergreen trees, because I look at an evergreen and what do you think of it? You think of it as always beautiful, always green, always pretty. But the reality is an evergreen tree loses 25 to 30% of its needles every year.
They're all in my pool right now. God.
So you already know this, but yes, an evergreen tree is really a new tree every 2 to 5 years, depending on how many of its needles are lost. And when I think of becoming anti-fragile, what it really is kind of a continuous investing in ourselves so we can also reinvent, so that you're new, so that you're keeping up. And so anti-fragile to me is, and using some of Nassim Taleb's concepts, he talks about tinkering and experimenting, that you've got to try new things on a regular basis. We all know that those who just sat back and waited for the pandemic stuff to be over, they got left behind, because it wasn't just a one and done thing. And only those who really tried new things, who said, hey, we're going to deliver our food to people rather than them being able to come to us. It was when you reinvented that you were able to keep going. And so I've taken his concepts to a personal level, and I look at it in terms of an acronym, growth. G is grit, which is Angela Duckworth's concept on grit. You have to have passion and perseverance. And I would add, you also need to have hope. You need to have hope that things are going to get better in order to have that passion and perseverance. R is your response, remembering that you have to adapt, and that the quicker you can adapt and the less that adaptation upsets your life and your ability to function, the better you'll be. O is my favorite because it represents my life, and it's outwork your weaknesses. And there are some things you may not be able to get rid of, but dang it, you can outwit them and outwork them. So find ways to camouflage those things that would otherwise make you weak so that they are no longer seen.
I thought you were going to say Orgill. And O is Orgill.
That's a superpower too. But outworking. So I think of it. When I'm on stage, I cannot stand still because of my deficits. I don't have great balance when I'm standing still. So I'm constantly walking on the stage. And I've had some people say, "Hey, why are you moving all the time? You just can't stand still, and it's distracting for the audience." And so when I explained the fact that this was because of deficits and that I was really trying to find a way around it, I had a coach who helped me say, well, let's figure out a different way around this. And so we started doing one of two things. I either have a table that is on the stage at all times, and it just has a glass of water on it. But if I even put my hand on the table so that my body doesn't have to do all of the balancing by itself, then I can stand there as long as I need to. No one has any idea that is
That's
to
your strategy.
keep me balanced.
Cool.
That's my strategy. Wow. Or the other thing that I do is I actually talk about the elephant in the room. And I say, this is something that you wouldn't know is going on, but this is what's happening behind the scenes.
Oh, wow.
And when I address this and say, but right now what I'm doing is I'm outworking that weakness. I'm outwitting it by admitting it, by making it a non-issue, by camouflaging it so that you don't see it anymore, but by being strategic about it, that you can overcome those things. Because you can't always change your weaknesses into competencies, but if you can camouflage them, if you can be strategic and outwit them, then you can still make them non-issues.
Yep.
W stands for weigh in, and the short of the long of that means that you check in with the people around you to make sure that all of the people on your team, whether that's in your family or the places where you work, you check to see the weight that they're carrying. Because so many times, you might have a very competent and capable person, but you may not be aware of the weight that they're carrying outside of your relationship with them. They may be caring for an aged spouse or parent or a sick child or dealing with other things, and that weight can impact their ability to function. And so when you do a regular weigh-in and you then share the load of the weight with the other people, whether that means you take a job away from someone and give it temporarily to someone else, or you spread out some of that weight in other ways, then you're able to, instead of having them feel depleted, they can get through it and you can all become stronger through it. The T stands for tinker and experiment, just meaning you got to try new things and you got to try them all the time. And when you try something and you fail, eliminate that. When you try something and you succeed, then you implement it into your systems.
Yep.
You may have discovered, Cameron, hey, we have a thing. There's people all over the state that want our food. Maybe we should add this to our list of services. And now maybe you have a delivery route that, you do, whatever it is. But you had to discover that by experimenting.
Yeah.
And then the H in growth stands for hood. And by hood, I mean the group of people you go through life with.
There you go.
Parenthood, neighborhood, your growth hood. Who are your people? And making sure that you stay connected. Because we all know, we've all heard the studies that the people who have a good support system, a good network, live longer, they're happier, because they have others who they invest in and who invest in them. And I'll tell you this. I did not save myself. And no matter what I did or could have done alone, it would not have been enough to preserve my life. But when surrounded by the right people and having a group that was cheering for me, helping me, providing that strength, that was when I was able to find the will to keep fighting, to grow enough to be strong enough to make it through that day, that minute, that hour, to be able to keep going and to push forward. And I know that as we surround ourselves, that we then can have that ever growth, so we can be like those trees. We can reinvent ourselves, but be green all of the time.
Wow.
Gosh, dang it. Don't go. Please. Oh my gosh, I need this right now. I did just have something pop into my head. I remember this being such a special moment with Kim, but I want to hear just a quick little summary about your doctor, your person.
Oh, I have two, and together they saved my life. And Dr. Coldwell.
Because you said everybody else said.
Everyone else said
can't
no.
Can't do it.
One neurosurgeon actually looked at me and said, I wouldn't touch you with a 10-foot pole.
Wow.
Number one, what kind of bedside manner is that?
Yeah.
Wife says that to me all the time. I'm sorry, I had to lighten that up really quick.
Good, because we need that. We need those moments to lighten things up when it gets too heavy. But to then find someone who instead took the opposite approach and with 100% humility looked at my MRI scans and said, I think I can do this. Wow. And then continued to say, you are not alone. Like, I am going to be with you through this journey. I don't want you to worry that you're going to have to struggle through this alone. I will be there with you the whole time. Now, neither of us had any idea at that time how long the journey was going to be and how involved it was going to be, and that they would have been doing experimental surgeries to try and save my life. But I always knew that he had my back, that he was there.
And who is this again?
This is Dr. William Coldwell at the University of Utah. He's the head of the Neurosciences Center. And he has been the president or the chair of the Neurosurgeon Society of America or something crazy like that. I mean, he is truly one of the best of the best. And I don't know if he knows how much it means to me, but just knowing that he wasn't going to give up, that even when the solution was not imminent, that he would go home after hours and research and try and look at possibilities and kind of come up with ideas. That kept me going. And then the other man was Dr. Clough Shelton, who was also at the University of Utah. And I ended up being a long-term patient of his because he's also the one at the hospital who was responsible for helping people with facial paralysis. And so I had the opportunity over the course of several years to continue visiting with him. Lost my hearing, and he worked with me on that and helped me find help and therapists in dealing with facial paralysis. Did you know that there are facial therapy therapists? Like, you can go and have therapy for your face. I have run so many marathons with the tiny little muscles in my face to try and learn how to use what was left to do the jobs of those things that were no longer there.
It's amazing.
And those men changed my life then. And there is one doctor who is changing my life now, and his name is Dr. Babak Azizadeh, and he is in Southern California, and we are going through a process called facial reanimation. And he is taking nerves and muscles from other parts of my body and surgically implanting them into my face.
Holy crap.
And by this time next year, I just might have a smile, and fingers crossed, I might be able to kiss my husband again.
Whoa.
So sometimes you don't think about those little things. You take them for granted. Blinking, chewing, keeping food in your mouth, kissing your husband. I would challenge you today to think about those things and be grateful for them.
It's interesting how you got the Jodi of doctors. Isn't that interesting? The energy that, someone who thinks like you know?
Well, thank you.
It's pretty cool.
I've been very blessed to find some amazing people who love what they do and have literally dedicated their lives to helping other people.
Man, we could seriously just shut the podcast down right now and I'd be happy. This has been such a blessing for us. So thank you for coming.
It's been a blessing for me too.
Thank you very much.
And I hope that you remember that we laughed as well as cried.
Yes.
Oh, that's why it was so fun.
God, I don't want it to end. I'm actually really sad that it's ending, but we could do another
We
one.
can do it again.
Yes, we can with Lucas.
Oh,
We're
we
gonna
need to
find
do that.
Lucas.
Oh, we got to find
Okay,
Lucas.
you guys got to help me find Lucas.
I want to get the whole panel together. Let's get Dr. Caldwell in here. We'll get, I forget the last.
I can't say the dude's doctor from California.
Azizadeh.
Azizadeh.
That's incredible.
He's my hero right now, I tell you.
Well, because you can you think about just electricity, nerves, like everything that's going on, and just there, it's a lot like your anti-fragility, Nassim Taleb. Same thing. Just, man, you've got all these people around you that look at their profession the way that you look at yours. It's really interesting, isn't it?
Well, and what is it that they say? You become like the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, that's right.
So you really do need to surround yourself by the kind of people you want to be like.
I need new friends.
My goal is
So
always
why
to
do
be
you think
like,
I'm here in the room with you today?
That's interesting because, maybe we take that for granted, just the people that we get to share time with in the podcast and the timing of some of it, and just like
there's
place,
a reason this
there.
episode was today instead of 6
months ago.
You have no
I wouldn't
idea.
even have had the surgery
Yeah.
then, and many of the things that I've learned since then, I wouldn't even have experienced.
Yeah. You got to trust in the timing and just appreciate it.
There's 7.5 billion people in the world. What are the odds that we would be sitting together in this room today?
For sure.
Well,
There's a
and
reason.
we're not even factoring in the people listening and how many people we're going to hear from after this one. Because it's like Kim. I will never forget Dr. Z. Like, we need to talk to Dr. Z. I will never forget that story of just like, just the Superman. Like, he just came in, like, they said, what? No, I can do this. And it's just, we forget, I think with healthcare and everything the way that it is, hearing that story about you trying to get your pain medicine, and just sometimes we forget, just having Bobby Tillotson in here. She's a friend of mine that's a nurse she left her practice at the U of U to work in the COVID ICU up at the University of Utah. And I think we both realized that you get kind of caught up in the news and the anecdotal whatever, and to have a real person and hear how real doctors and nurses are suffering and working their butts off and giving everything to save people,
and literally not even taking breaks.
Figure out how to beat this, and the smart people out there trying to cure it. And it does. It gives you that reminder that these doctors and these nurses and the CNAs
the
and
little guys on the
cafeteria workers. And I mean, because there's
everyone
stories,
is being pushed to their max.
if they're in the hospital, they've got a part to play, right? And so,
which is so funny because that's the other thing that I am doing right now. In addition to teaching people about becoming anti-fragile, I'm going and doing caregiving for the caregivers at hospitals and sharing some of the incredible stories of the people who did touch my life, to give them that little bit of reminder of why they're doing this.
They make that little motivation,
yes, and to remind them that every interaction is an opportunity, and that every time that they are with a patient, they're with a person whose life is going to be changed by their experience if they allow it.
You just reminded me of something that I did on my mission. So I blew my knee out on my mission in South America, and I finished in Alabama of all places, but it was a very, very recently repopulated with all Latinos, because all the sock mills were there. But the hospital there, nobody spoke Spanish. I was like the only one in town. So 4 out of the 7 days a week, I wasn't knocking doors. I was in the hospital translating.
Oh, wow.
I learned some new words there, I'll tell you that. But that, I sat with over 4 people holding their hands as they passed away, just because they didn't have somebody to sit there.
You know what a privilege that is?
It was, I will never forget this old woman. She just held my hand, and her skin was just kind of tearing as she held my hand. And I have not thought about that for years. And we all need to do a better job at remembering, because how many janitors at hospitals have stories of going in to collect garbage and just brightening someone's day. And it's not just hospitals,
everyone is doing something.
And
everyone's going through something.
Hopefully you listen to this, and for the next few weeks you look at everything a little differently. All all because of you.
You stop
Jodi.
and buy those rocks, and you remember that every person around you, that you have the opportunity to change your life.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming in. So
Loved
grateful.
it. This is what I needed today. Thank you.
Thank
I'm trying
you
to
so
think
much.
of another question really fast before you go. I'm just kidding. Thank you, Jodi. That means a lot.
Thank you.